Good morning, Heaven Bound family, and anyone listening. This is Pastor Larry with a moment in the Word on this Tuesday, the 25th. Day is Tuesday, the 25th, and we're starting back in Genesis, doing the just chapters that I enjoy and learn from. And we talked about Adam and Eve. We talked about Cain and Abel. And last night we talked about Enoch. Tonight, or this morning, I want to look at the genealogy in chapter 5. This is a chapter that a lot of people don't like, but I find it very informative. And let me share with you why. If you look in verse 3 there, it says that Adam was 130 years old. Now, then they're going to skip over Cain and Abel. Not that it doesn't matter as far as years go. We don't know how old Cain and Abel was when Cain killed Abel or when Cain moved off the scene. But we do know that when 130 years had passed since Adam was created, and at 130 he bore a son named Seth. This would be the third son, and it's from Seth that the Christ's genealogy is going to come from. So if we go down to Seth is 130 years old, or Adam is 130 years old when he has Seth. Seth is, in verse 6, is 105 years old when he has his son, who is named Enos, E-N-O-S. And so if you add that 130 and 105, you got 205. And then Enos was 90 years old when he begat Canaan. And so that gives you 90 and 130 and 105. That's 235 to 385. I'm not going to add all of these one by one, but if we go from Enos to Canaan, then he was 70 years old when he begat Mahalalel, and then Mahalalel, he was 65 years old when he begat Jared. Jared was 162 years old when he begat Enoch. Now, Enoch is the one that we talked about last night. So if we add all of that up, I believe it's now 622 years. This is important. Adam would have been 622 years old when Enoch was born. Adam is going to live to be 930. Enoch is only going to live 365. So 330 of the years that Enoch lived, and I may be off a year or two there, but if I took time to add it up, 622, Adam was 622 when Enoch was born. He's going to live to 930, so it'll be 308 years. Enoch will be 308 years old when Adam dies. Now, the important thing about this is that we wonder where Enoch got his great faith from. He was a preacher of righteousness, we discovered both last night or yesterday, and from the book of Jude, and that he was a individual of faith. He's included in the Hall of Faith. Well, Enoch, he bore his son when he was just a kid, only 65 in comparison there. So Enoch was 65 years old when he begat Methuselah. Methuselah is the oldest living man ever to live. He is going to live to be 969 years old. But Methuselah is, we don't add the 969, all right? Forget that. That's just a point of reference. But it says in verse 25, Methuselah lived 187 years and begat Lamech. Now, Lamech will be the father of Noah. And So we add that 187 years. And Lamech lived 182 years, and he begat Noah. If we add those years up, Adam, from Adam to the birth of Noah would be 1,056 years old. Now then, it goes on down in verse 30, it says, and Lamech lived after he begat Noah 595 years and begat sons and daughters. It's interesting. Lamech lived 597 years, and he died just about the time of the flood. His grandfather, his grandfather, Methuselah, is going to live right up to the flood. So if you're wondering where Noah got his faith at, it tells us here in verse 30, and Lamech lived after he begat Noah 595 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Lamech were 777 years. Now then, notice here in verse 30, Lamech lived 595 years after Noah was born. Now Noah is going to be 600 years old when the flood comes. So that means that Lamech lived right up to 3 years before the flood. And you may question, well, Valeria, you say here, and all the days of Lamech were 770 years, and he died. And Noah was 500 years old. Now it says Noah was 500 years old when he begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. If we turn over into chapter 6, and we look, actually chapter 7, and look at verse 6 of chapter 7. And Noah was 600 years old when the floods of waters was upon the earth. Now then, back up and add 600 to the 1,056 years that prior to up to Lamech there was in other words, Methuselah lives 187 years, begets Lamech. Lamech lives 182 years. That gives us 1,056 years. Add 600 to that, and you want to know how long it was from Adam to the flood? Well, this tells you. Add it up. At 600 years, that's when the flood came, not the 500 years that when Noah is mentioned. That just tells us when Shem, Ham, and Japheth was born, possibly triplets there. But at any rate, from Adam to the flood is 1,656 years. An interesting study for guys like me. Like I said, it may not interest you at all. So just to get it a little bit more interested, we could add Noah here in chapter 6. In chapter 6, it tells us about Noah. And let's stop here. This is about 10 minutes. And so we'll stop here and we'll pick up with the flood in the morning. Right now, this is Pastor Larry with a moment in the Word. Hope that you go back and check my figures and make sure they're right, and hope that it will interest you or maybe answer a question that you have asked or that someone has asked you. At any rate, now you know the answer. There were 1,656 years from Adam to the flood. In other words, it took man 1,656 years to go from a perfect being in the Garden of Eden to such a wicked state of affairs that God decided to destroy all of mankind. Only by the grace of God did God find grace in Noah and Noah's wife, his 3 sons, and their wives, and therefore decided to let mankind continue on. And therefore, you and I are here today. Hey, this is Pastor Larry with a moment in the Word. Be blessed. Go forth today. Bless someone. It'll bless you. It'll bless them. It'll bless God. God will bless you. And it'll be a blessed day. Share Christ with someone today. That will make it a double blessed day. Have a wonderful Tuesday.